Man.
Okay, we've got a mimer to try to finish.
Are we live?
We are live. We're going to see the most exciting thing that ever happened in the history of humankind. Yeah, it's too late. I already left. We've been on for 4 seconds. They said amen to the bracha, and that was it. They hung up. Okay. We're in the end of Ois Vav, and we were talking about the fact that all of the miracles ultimately come from the Mesiras Nefesh of the Chashmonaim, which means that all of the miracles on a certain level are shaykh to the highest level. So we're going to see in the end, once we finish this paragraph, we're going to see that there's really three ways in which we understand these miracles. The first way we understood the miracle was each expresses a different level of elokus, right? And if we can remember our board, what happened to the board? B'chalal. Remember our board. So we had Yehuda Tata, lower level unity, that was the Milchama. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Eliyah L'Vayah. We had Yehudi law, that was finding the Pach Shemen, that's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And we had the level of the oil burning for 8 days, which was the highest level of miracle that was completely and totally beyond nature. Not obliterating nature, there's no nature to obliterate. Right? Completely and totally transcendent. And we said that the 3 stages of the story of Hanukkah relate to those 3 different levels of godly revelation. That's the first thing we said in the Bible. Then we said, Ba'at be'emes, they're really all coming from the same level. They're all ultimately coming from the level of Havaya de La'ela, right? The 3rd level. And how do we see that? Well, we see it on 2 levels. First of all, the Mesiras Nefesh of the Chashmonaim was coming from that place. Right? And therefore the victory in the war is also ultimately an expression of that. And we're also going to see, we've already seen this, but we'll see it more clearly in the next few lines, that it's also the source of what's going to be, right? What caused the next miracle? Winning the war. What caused the next miracle? Finding the Shemen. Okay. We're done here. We're on page Kuf Gimel. We're finishing the mind.
If we say that all 3 levels are on Havaya de Ela, can I say that right? Anyway.
Yes.
What is it?
Yes, you said it right. Yes, that's what we said. What do you mean? What's in it? What does that mean?
What isn't? Like if all of the miracles actually come from that level, then what doesn't come from that level?
Well, the Seder. Ultimately, everything comes from that level because everything. There's ultimately nothing that exists in any way, shape, or form other than the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Seder. There's no godly light. There's nothing relative to the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, which is called Yesh Amiti, true being. Godly light is called Ayin, not true being that has a source in some other level of reality. That's true. But here we're talking about what's the source of this miracle. What's the ultimate source of this miracle? Well, what level of godliness was, and to use the word directly is, but I'm going to use the word directly, because it really is directly. What level of godliness is directly responsible for the fact that we won the war? Havaya de La'ela. But that I don't understand. Havaya de La'ela would mean that there's no opposition, and there's no Greek, and it's all just which is the ultimate in Mesiras Nefesh. So the Rebbe explained that in 2 different ways. Relative to the miracle itself, that miracle which is a revelation of that amazingly powerful level of godliness called Havaya de La'ela, but it was clothed in the levushim, in the garments of nature, right? The miracle of Pach Shemen isn't clothed of the Shemen lasting 8 days isn't clothed in any garments of nature whatsoever. It's completely and totally transcendent of nature, because it can't be that oil that should last 1 day will last 8 days naturally. So that's an open expression of something completely and totally beyond nature. The war is not an open and obvious expression of that. What is it really, though? That's what it is. Right? That's what it truly is. It's just not so obvious, right? We brought the example of the 6-day war, right? Which I have no idea what level of godly reality was responsible for those miracles. But Is it possible for someone to relate to that in completely natural terms?
Right.
Yeah, you do that. Harder with the Chashmonim because you're talking about an even greater miracle. Okay, Beseder, but Beseder, the Viet Cong beat the Americans. How many Viet Cong were there? I mean, I don't know. I was a kid when it was all happening. But how many were there? I don't know. Right? But those guys hanging around in the jungle, literally moving from palm tree to palm tree in the Vietnamese jungles, defeated the biggest army on earth. The Americans, they won. They Pashut won. The Americans literally left with their tails between their legs. They abandoned the embassy in Saigon. Famous pictures of it was very, very sad, the whole thing. South Vietnamese who had helped the Americans were hanging on to the rudders of helicopters to try to get out. They fell to their death. Why? Because they didn't want to stay there, because they knew what was going to happen to them, because they were helping the enemy, right? Okay. They literally left with their tail between their legs. I don't know whether a war between America and the Viet Cong can be described in miraculous terms, right? It's just, okay, somehow they won. It would be, I'm never going to get around to it. There's lots of interesting things you're never going to get around to. Would it be interesting to see what do people who discuss wars say about that now? Just the guy in West Point, when they talk about it, what do they talk about? What do they say? Interesting to know, because it was pretty wild. Tiny little country. Right? Beat the Americans. Americans are pretty big. Okay, the Americans were certainly not long before that, you're talking 25 years, were pretty powerfully responsible for the defeat of Nazi Germany. A pretty big place, Nazi Germany, pretty serious army. Now, the Russians had a lot to do with that also, right? Okay. But same people, 25 years later, what's 25 years? It's nothing. Right. Okay. Do you think, World War II is ancient history? So the Vietnamese War for your generation, I guess, is ancient history. Anybody who lived through that time relates to that having shaped the America of today, right? Because of the trauma of that whole thing. Unbelievably traumatic for America. Incredibly traumatic. Right? They also lost, which is, traumatic in its own right.
So traumatic that we won't even admit that we lost.
No, come on. They must admit that they lost. I mean, they left. Right?
Americans never say that we lost.
Did I never say? Okay, I'm saying I don't know. But it was definitely a very traumatic experience. There's no doubt about it. Okay.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The point of the mimer is not saying that something that it maybe isn't even a miracle. We can for sure trace back to
every state, all of reality. Ultimately, if you trace it back far enough, you'll get to the source of Havaya dalet.
But the question is that we know that the war was a miracle, and how could it's maybe even more interesting to how it connects back to Havaya dalet, because we know that it for sure had godly influence, but in a clothed way.
Okay, so let's see. The Rebbe is now going to explain why, when we see the reason why we don't celebrate Chaf Dalet and we celebrate Chaf Hey, I think the answer to your question will become clear. Okay? So that's where the Rebbe is going, because you're right, that's what we have to understand. But again, just very, very quickly, the first time we talked about the miracles, we talked about 3 distinct levels. The second time we talked about the miracle, we talked about all of that everything's coming from the same place. It's just expressing itself in different ways. There's the miracle of the war, which is in the levushim of Teva, it's in the garments of Teva, and the Hashmonim were very aware of the existence of the enemy, even though it's coming from Yechidish Benefesh, where you might say, Azoi v'nistanders, this is the way it is, and there isn't anything else like the Frida Rebbe in jail with the Soviets, right? That they don't exist. No, that's not what happened in Hanukkah. Right? It's coming from that place, but it was clothed in the garments of nature in terms of the event in the world. And relative to them, what did the Rebbe say? That Yechidish Benefesh came down and expressed itself in their revealed conscious reality. So they were aware of the enemy. But in no way, shape, or form allowed the enemy to move them away from what they understood to be truth. Because relative to the truth, this is the way it is and there is no other way. There's an enemy over there. Theoretically, that enemy should be gone. Pada b'shalom, right? What we learned relative to Pada b'shalom when we were learning the Pada b'shalom Maimon. Right? No, this is Pada b'melchama, mamish, real melchama. But what is the source of it all ultimately? It's still Yechidah Shebenefesh, but it's being clothed in the revealed powers of the soul. That's what we learned at the top of page Kuf Gimel. The second nace is less clothed in the realm of nature, but it's still ultimately, we had to find a Pach Shemen in space, in Gashmis. We found it. It's not that it floated down from heaven. We found it. Higher level of miracle, less clothing in nature, but still some connection to nature. What's that? That's Havaya dalet. That's Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Right? Yeah, true. The Echad is the source of the four directions and Aretz and the seven levels of Shemaim. It's transcendent of them, but it's the source of them, so it's connected to them on some level. That's Havaya Delatata. That's what we said earlier in the Maimer. Aye, true, but the true source of this miracle is also the same as the source of the miracle in Mechama. Etzim, the highest level. Okay, and then there's the third miracle, which is Takadat, in the most revealed way. Yeah? That's the second way we looked at it. First, 3 different levels of Elokus revealed in 3 different miracles. Second, it's all the highest level, but it's being expressed in 3 different ways. More concealment, less concealment, complete and total revelation. Now, let's see the third thing the Rebbe is going to say. V'yesh lahoisif, Kuf Gimel, the little paragraph before Zion. V'yesh lahoisif, tezeh shegam hanisim d'nitzochan ha'melchama u'metzias pach Hashemen. The fact that also the miracles of the victory in the war and finding the Pach Shemen, Haim, they are mi Havaya de la'elo shalamayla mishtalshlus. They're coming from that level, that third level that we talked about at the beginning of the Maimer, that's beyond the natural order completely and totally. The third one, right? Ella, but relative to these miracles, shenislavshu b'dargas d'ishtalshlus, they were clothed in different levels of natural reality. Yehuda Tatov, Yehuda Ilah, right? That's what we just said, right? The Rebbe just summarized the second explanation of everything, right? First explanation, 3 distinct levels. Second explanation, they're all coming from the same place. They're just expressed in different ways. That's what the Rebbe just said in those 2 lines. The second level we understood it. Second way we understood it. Who? Now the Rebbe is going to say something quite astounding. Hu mipnei shehem, the first 2 levels, and especially the first level, heim hayu hachona lanes daspakas Hashem l'shman Hashem. They're the preparation for the miracle of the oil lasting 8 days. Nes, a miracle, she'ena maluvish b'teva, that's not clothed in nature in any way, shape, or form. Meaning, interesting enough, it's true they're a lower level than the third miracle, but they're also that which allows for the third miracle to happen. If there's no victory in the war, there's no Pach Shemen. If there's no Pach Shemen, there's no 8 days. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly true. Okay, keep reading. The Nisim Elu, that these miracles, mitzad atzmam, in terms of themselves, just understanding those miracles themselves. In other words, what if, the Rebbe is saying something very subtle here, but what if the miracle of the 8 days had never happened? There was no miracle of 8 days, right? So what would happen? There would have been a miraculous victory in a war, and then we would have found the Pach Shemen. Well, exactly what we have done with the Pach Shemen? I don't know. You could say like the Ritva, right? We could have poured a little bit each of the 8th day, and it would burn for 2 hours, right? And if that happened, Azma, would we have a holiday? Certainly not an 8-day holiday, right? Might we have a 1-day holiday? Maybe, I don't know, could be. Unclear. It took them a full year to establish it as a holiday. B'chlal, only the next year, it says Lashana Acheres, Kavu. The next year they established it as a holiday. Holiday was, not abundantly clear to them. Right? Okay. So these 2 levels are a preparation for the third. Okay, let's see what that's all about. that these two miracles, mitzad atzman, in terms of themselves, heim, they are be'ikr, essentially, ha'inyanim b'yichud ha'tata b'yichud ha'Ilah, the levels of lower level unity, the reality of lower level unity and upper level unity, which is what we said at the beginning of the Maimer. I think we understood that very, very clearly, and we had it on our disappearing. What happened is our board has now gone to the level of Havaya de La'ela, and it is no longer in any way, shape, or form connected to nature, and so we can't see it. It's here. It's here. We're just not there. We're not where it is. But I mean, it is here. So we had written that we had 6 different ways in which those two levels would express themselves, right? 24, Baruch Shem, Havaya de Elokim, winning the war, Bittul Yesh, and I'm missing one. 24, Baruch Shem, 24 letters. Shem Elokim, miracle of the war. We said it was Bittul Yesh. What was the 6th? Who remembers the 6th? Okay, we'll put that to the side. We don't want to spend our whole morning worrying about the 6th. It's on the board. If we could just see the board, Little Mesiras Nefesh will see the board, right? The second level, 25 letters in Shema Yisrael, right? That's Shema Yisrael, not Baruch Shem. Shema Yisrael, Havaya the Shem Havaya, which is going to be Havaya Latata, right? But Shem Havaya, Havaya de Latata, Bittul b'Metzias, and the miracle of finding the Pak Shemen. Did I say 5 or 6? I think 5. Still missing one. Okay. And the third level, Havaya de Leila. In Shema Yisrael, what was it? Who remembers? No?
Hashem Elokeinu.
Beautiful. Hashem Elokeinu. Not Hashem Echad, Hashem Elokeinu. Right? And that was the miracle of burning 8 days. And that's completely and totally L'mayla Minish Tashlis. Okay. Yeah? Say that. So there were those 3 distinct levels. All of those levels ultimately, and this is true, they're a result of the Mesiras Nefesh of the Chashmonaim, which is coming from Yechidah Sheb'Nefesh, which is coming from Havaya de Leila, the highest level, but clothed in nature. Okay. Now look, the Rebbe says something really interesting. Val Yedei Shehanes, the Nitzochan HaMilchama, since the nace of the victory in the war, Heyasiba, was the reason, Lahanes, for the miracle, the Metzias Pak Shemen, finding the Pak Shemen. Obviously, we wouldn't have gotten into the base of Mikdash if we didn't win the war. Kanal B'tchilas Maimer, as we said earlier in the beginning of the Maimer, Hine, La'achvei Shenasa Boy, after it was done in the Pak Shemen, that we found as a result of the fact that we won the war and went into the base of Mikdash and were matar the base of Mikdash, but even after we had purified the base of Mikdash, there was a need for another miracle in order for us to light the menorah, and that miracle was first finding the Pak Shemen, and then there was the miracle of it lasting 8 days. But finding the Pak Shemen, Hine 3 lines up, Pak Shematzu, in the jug that they found, Nace. Vidliku mehemenu shmeni yamim, and that relatively little amount of oil, right? That 3 liters of oil that filled up the cups, but it was only enough to fill up the cups once. Vidliku mehemenu shmeni yamim, that somehow was able to allow for the oil in those cups in the menorah to burn for 8 days. Al Yedei Zeh, by virtue of the last miracle, what happens? Nimshach, it's drawn down, Gilui Havaya de La'elo, the revelation of Havaya de La'elo, the third level, Shalamayla Mishtashlis, is completely beyond the natural order. Gam, also, Banes de Metzias Pach HaShemen, in the miracle of finding the Shemen in the first place, V'gam Banes de Nitzochan HaMelcham, also in the nace of the war. What's the Rebbe saying? This is we're going to get from this to a third level of understanding things. How is it that you and I know that the true source of the Milchama was the highest level? What reveals that to us?
The fact that there was an actual miracle.
Oh, exactly. The third miracle. Right? The third miracle ends up revealing to you and I that the first two are also coming from the same level. Because after all, what were the first two? And the Rebbe's going to say it more explicitly on the next page. What were the first two? A preparation for the third. And as a matter of fact, we're going to say very soon, not only they were a preparation, they were to a great degree the reason for the third. What was the reason we were able to ultimately have oil burn miraculously for 8 days? Because we won the war. If we hadn't won the war, that wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have been such a miracle. How could there possibly be such a miracle if we hadn't won the war? So the reason for that great miracle is actually winning the war. Okay, so let's, in order to get a clear picture of it all, let's see. Because now the Rebbe is going to start answering. We finished. I remember once hearing a mashpia say about this part in the Maimon. He said, we finished the philosophy. It hasn't been philosophy, right? But we finished the ideas in the Maimon. Okay, and we have these, at this point, we have two distinct ways of understanding the relationship of the miracles to each other. The gradation of it and the oneness of it. We haven't seen the third level yet, but we will. And that's going to help us understand why we celebrate Chaf Hei, not Chaf Dalet. Okay? Seder? Let's go. Let's see. Now the Rebbe is going to answer our question. Finally. We've been waiting for this for a week. I don't know about you, but I barely slept this week waiting for this answer. Right? No, I mean, I'm, barely slept. V'zeu shekavu atzchalas yemei Chanukah b'chaf hei Kislev. And that's why it was established the beginning of the days of Hanukkah only on the 25th and not the 24th when we won the war. Shaboy haya nesa neders, that was the place of the miracle of the neders. Why? Ki hashleimus, the wholeness, the completion, shel hanes nitzachon melchama, of the miracle of nitzachon melchama, shai b'chav dalet Kislev, and that happened on the 24th. Right? Shemagalim boy. That's Yehuda Tata, right? Lower level unity. Shemagalim boy. Al Yedei Nes Hashemen. It's revealed in relative to that miracle by virtue of the Nes Hashemen. Shegam Hu. Also that level of miracle, that miracle. Hanes Nitzachon Melchama Sharsha. Its true source is Lamayla Mishtalshalus, is beyond Ishtalshalus. So when do we appreciate the true nature of the victory of the Milchama?
When the highest level miracle.
Oh, so then really at this point, what should we celebrate? Based on what we just said, what should we celebrate? The 26th. Because that's when everything's truly put in its proper perspective. Then we really understand everything. Okay, so now we don't. We do the 25th. We're going to figure that out, okay? After the sentence we just read, you might say, well, so then we should do the 26th. Okay, yes, the Rebbe knows that's what you would think, and that's why the Rebbe is going to explain everything he's going to explain in the rest of the paragraph, right? Because the mimer ends at the end of this paragraph. Yehi Ratzain is just the Rebbe's, he gives an unbelievable bracha at the end of it all, right? But first the Rebbe's going to finish the explanation at the end of the paragraph. Okay, so at this point, I'm a little confused. I get why we're not doing Chaf Dalet, because I don't really appreciate Chaf Dalet. Now, in all fairness, at this point I might say I don't really appreciate Chaf Dalet until Chaf Vav. I appreciate what it's really all about. It's only on Chaf Vav. But wait a minute, so then why don't we celebrate Chaf Vav? Put it on the shelf for a minute. Don't worry, the Rebbe never ever ends up owing you anything at the end of the Maimer. He'll pay up regarding everything. But that's not right. Let's see. So it's all through the nes of the Shemen. Now, the nes of the Shemen can be finding it, but also can be the nes of Shemini Yomim, right? There are two nisim with the Shemen. Yeah? Ayadei nes of Shemen, Shegam Hu, also it. And when we say who, what do we mean? Hanes to Nitzachon Melchama. See, the Rebbe is so kind to us. All those questions you're always asking Gemara, what's it? Every pronoun? Okay, the Rebbe tells us. It doesn't make us figure it out ourselves. The miracle of the war, Sharsha, its source, is Lamayla Mishtalshlus, is beyond Ishtalshlus. And so, what's Hanukkah all about? Lamayla Mishtalshlus. That's what Hanukkah is all about. When does that come into revelation? Havav. So I can't celebrate Chav Dalet. Nothing's happened. Nothing, meaning everything's already happened ultimately on Chav Dalet, but it's not revealed yet. The true nature of Chav Dalet isn't revealed until I get to Chav Vav.
You can't celebrate Hafvav because it's beyond.
What you're saying is beautiful. Let's see what the Rebbe says about Chav Vav. Right? What you're saying is very. The Rebbe's going to say that. He's going to say it with a few more details, but yes, the Rebbe's going to say that. Right? But why can't we celebrate the above? The above, actually. We'll see. See what the Rebbe says about it. Even though sheyesh ma'ilo, there's an advantage of Yehuda Tatal, Yehudi law. And we talked about this earlier. There's a certain advantage of a miracle that's clothed in nature, and Izzy explained this to us. There's a certain advantage of a miracle clothed in nature as opposed to a miracle that's completely transcendent of nature. That you see the power of the Eibishter, that he's not limited by nature in any way, shape, or form. He can be revealed in nature. Don't think that he has to obliterate nature in order to reveal himself. He can be revealed in nature itself. He's completely beyond limitation. Because and this goes back to what we always like talking about, and it always freaks people out the first time they hear it. That's why I say it so much, because I love freaking people out. That God's not infinite. My rabbi's a blasphemer. Right? No, God's not infinite. He's beyond infinite. Where do you see that God's beyond infinite? If God were only infinite, could there be a nace clothed in nature? No. So what's the nace? Well, we'd call it infinite. Where can't infinite be revealed? Infinite. In order for there to be a miracle, what would have to happen? Obliteration of finite. Right? Complete and total suspension of nature. Right? That's what would have to happen in order for there to be a miracle. So on a certain level, what's an even greater miracle? That the Eibishter can reveal himself in nature. He's not limited by it. He's not limited by finite, which means he's not limited by infinite. Because the infinite is limited by finite, because infinite can't be finite. God can. So Yehuda Tata on a certain level is the highest level. And that is, we talked about it sort of on the outside. That's why you and I say in Kriya Shema, it's one of the reasons given in Chassidus as to why we say in Kriya Shema, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and not Yechid. Because Yechid is that Yehudi law level. That's not as impressive as Yehuda Tata. Now, I know Baruch Shem is Yehuda Tata, but when we say Hashem Echad, we mean that the Eibishter is revealed in the world, and yet the world is completely bottled to him. Right? That shiluv of both, which is the most powerful thing imagined. Right? So on a certain level, yes, I understand Shema Yisrael is Yehudi law. Right? But relative to the level above it, what did we say? It's really Yehuda Tata. Okay. So the Eibishter revealing himself in nature is more astounding on a certain level. The world doesn't hide God. Much easier to say the world hides God, and in order to touch God, I have to transcend the world.
Maybe this is a tangent, but if Shema Yisrael is on the level of Havaya, or
Havaya dalet, right?
Shema Yisrael is Latata.
Havaya dalet, right?
Havaya
Not Elokim, not Elokim. That's Baruch Shem Gevurah.
Okay.
Shema Yisrael is Yehudi law. So yes, I know. I just talked about it in the context of
Baruch
Yehuda
Shem
Tata.
is Yehuda
Tata.
So why do we follow Shema Yisrael with something that's lower than it?
We might even understand that to a great degree. That's why we celebrate Chafei and not Chavdal. Same thing, right? What's the Iker? Chafei. What's also there? Chavdalit. But what are you going to celebrate? Chafei. Okay, so when you say Shema Yisrael, what are you really expressing? Yehudi law. What are you also paying heed to, albeit quietly? Yehuda Tata. It's there. But what's the ultimate purpose of Yehuda Tata? To get to Yehudi law. That's the Iker. You want to get to the place where Hashem Echad. What's Elokim? Elokim is the playground that allows you to experience Shem Havaya. But in order for there to be a playground, there has to be a Shem Elokim. There has to be a concealment of it all. But that playground is the place to get to Yud Kei Vav Kei. I don't want to be. I don't want. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to suffice with Shem Elokim. Yes, God created the world. That's true, but He's completely transcendent of it. That's why I'm just saying this for David. I take issue with this statement David said at the beginning of the class, before class. It's not enough to know that I'm stuck with him, because that's all Yehudi Tato. I got to know about him, Mamish. That was a different conversation. I didn't know I was quiet when you said that. Wasn't I good? But what you said is also true about the other thing that you have to learn. I agree with you 100%. You are absolutely true. You're absolutely right. Okay, so let's start with Av. Av sheyesh ma'ila v'yichud tatal yichudei law. There's a certain ma'ila. Now look what the Rebbe says in brackets. Really astounding. And now this is going to bring us to a whole third level of understanding the miracles. V'yesh leimar. It's a yesh leimar. That's why the miracle of the Nitzachon Milchama Haya Hasiba L'Neis Hashemen, it was the reason for the Neis Hashemen. Yehuda Tata was the reason for Yehudi law, so to speak. I mean, the so to speak is relative to translating it into Yehuda Tata and Yehudi law. But the Neis of the Milchama was not, so to speak, the source of the other miracles. It was the source of the other miracles. And what do we know about a source? The siba, the cause of something, is higher and more powerful than the effect. If I push the table moves because I caused it to move. Who's more powerful, me or the table? Obviously me. Rabbi Marash uses that idea, this idea, which is just a logical idea, that the cause of something is obviously more powerful than the effect because the effect depends on the cause. The Reb Marash says that's how we can come to an appreciation of just how powerful our mitzvahs are. So what do our mitzvahs ultimately bring about? Yemei Mashiach, but even beyond that, Chiyas HaMesim. The second kufa of Yemei Mashiach, resurrection of the dead, etc. What's the cause of that whole reality called resurrection of the dead? This incredible revelation of godliness? Our mitzvahs. So therefore, what's higher? Resurrection of the dead or our mitzvahs? Our mitzvahs. The sieve is always higher than the Masevev. The cause is always higher than the effect. So what causes the miracle of Pach Hashemen and the miracle of the Shemini Yomim? The Milchama. So now this is the third level of understanding. On a certain level, we said Milchama, Pach Shemen, 8 days. That was our first understanding. Then we said they're really all the same. They're all coming from Havai Delayla, but different expressions of that, being expressed in different ways. Now, what the Rebbe just said, what's the highest level? The Milchama. On a certain level, the Milchama is the highest level. And everything else comes from it. It's the third way of understanding these three miracles. That's just parenthetically. The Rebbe throws that out. Okay, 3 levels now. All the same, and Milchama and everything else. So why don't we celebrate Chav Dalet? Mikol Makom, after saying that, nevertheless, what's Yehuda Tata all about? Hari Hashleimus Yehuda Tata, the completeness, wholeness, perfection of Yehuda Tata, who? Shia Ba'ar B'Gilu Yehudi Law. Is ultimately that I come to the level of Yehudi Law. I come to the level of understanding Hashem Echad, Mamish. Baruch Shem isn't enough. I have to say Shema Yisrael. That's the Ikar. The Ikar is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Yes, there's a Baruch Shem Kavod, which is very important. And as a matter of fact, on a certain level is even a more powerful revelation of godliness. On a certain level. The fact that the Eibishter can create a world and not be, and still be in that world. That the so-called, I'm saying so-called because of things the Rebbe says about it, but the so-called machlekes between the Gra and the Alter Rebbe. There was definitely a machlekes, right? Between the Alter Rebbe and the Gra, relative to the notion of Tzimtzum. Is Tzimtzum to be understood literally or not? So Tzimtzum literally means there's, so to speak, I mean, we have to say so to speak because we can't imagine this reality, but there's no Eibishter in the world. He's completely and totally contracted from the world. And the light that allows the world to continue existing is the light of Torah that's brought in through our learning of Torah. That's how the Gra understood thing. And now you might also understand the difference between the way the Litvisher relate to serving God and the way Hasidim relate to serving God. Simsim Kipshute, then the only thing, what do I have to do in Olam Hazeh to be connected to God? I have Simsim Torah, drawing God down into the world. That's what's keeping the world alive. The Alter Rebbe said no. He fought that vehemently and said no. Simsim doesn't mean there's no Eibush in the world. It means he's simply hidden. But it's all him. Yichud Tatah. It's all him. Still all him. But it's just hidden there. So it's not that it's so. In other words, basically, how's the Rebbe Rashab explains it in such an amazing way? What is the world all about? What's Shem Elokim relative to Shem Havaya? What's Tzimtzum? That. Tzimtzum Kipshutai is that. I get to be God in this. Okay. Where am I? I'm back here. But this thing, is it hiding me? Yeah, absolutely. It's hiding me completely, right? Is it me? No, it's not me. It's a book. Right? True? Can I take the book away from my face? Because I'm getting sick and tired of having a book in my face? We get it? Yeah. Oh, you guys are not nice. You're going to sit there quietly and not say anything, but I'll stick here with the book in my face. Okay.
I don't get it.
So that's that. Thank you very much. Here, you do it. That's do it yourself. You'll get it. Don't try this at home. Right? So that's Tzimtzum Kipshuta. There's something hiding me. What's Tzimtzum really? What's hiding me?
You.
Me.
I didn't know peekaboo was such a
Deep. Right? Right? There's something hiding me. What? It's me. But what's this? This is really. This is ponim, which is panemius. Really me. You want to know who I am? This isn't going to help very much, right? You look at that part of a person, you see a lot of what that person's all about from that. Everything, no. Because you know, people can also be good actors and hide a lot from this, right? I mean, a good actor in real terms in acting, well, I mean, that's one of the things they learn to do is to, express a completely different persona than their own. And where's it most powerfully expressed? Through their face. That's a hard thing to do like that. That's, acting like that. That must be very hard. You're really a very nice person. You have to be the villain. Wow, like that's okay. You got to have a villain face. I had a cousin who was a pretty well-known actor in the 50s and 60s and 70s in Hollywood. And he was a really, really nice guy. Wonderful person. The only time I ever saw him on a television program or, he was the villain. He was always the villain. Put on an English accent. He didn't have an English accent. He would have an English accent and he was always the villain. Okay. He grew this little mustache that made him look more villainous. He's the nicest guy, okay, but he always acted the villain. But what do you see here? Who someone really is. Right. And what do you see here? I don't know. You put the hands down on the table. You've never met the person. Have pictures of 10 hands, and then walk in the room. I don't know who's who. I haven't got a clue. Give me 10 pictures of faces. Face, that's Shem Havaya. This, Shem Elokim. That's Tzimtzum. So to recognize the godliness in this, to recognize the panemius in this, is really very, very, very special. And that's our ultimate Aveda. But through that Aveda, where do we want to get? What are we really interested in? We're not interested in this, we're interested in this. But we can only get it through here, because that's where we are. So we have to move aside that which is concealing the Eibishter and get to the higher point, which is Yehudi law. So the Iker is Yehudi law, not Yehudi Tata. Oh. So what are we going to celebrate? Yehudi law. Chafei. Mikol Makam Hari Shleimus Yehudi Tata, fourth line. Hu sheyeh bo ha'or v'gilu d'yichudi lo. Is the light and the revelation of Yichudi Lo. Why did the Eibusher create a world? Why did the Eibusher put himself in a place where, so to speak, he's hiding behind his hands? He wants us to move his hands away. Exactly. And in all fairness, when you do it with the kid, you were saying peekaboo, when you're sitting there with the kid on your lap and you're going like this, what is that kid going to do? They reach up. When you move away, they get very excited, or they themselves you'll feel this little hentala, and it'll try to move your hands out of the way. The kid will pick up his hands and try to move your hands because he knows you're back there, right? Oh, they're adorable. That's what it's all about. This Shabbos, Mushi is coming to visit this Shabbos. I can't wait to see my little Mushi. Also Ellie, but Ellie's little. Mushi's already you can have a conversation with Mushi, and it's a lot of fun. Ellie is this cute little guy with blue eyes, but he just smiles. That's about what Ellie does now. Mushi is, a 15-year-old, 2.5-year-old. She is just unbelievable. She is so much fun. Okay. So, it's all about Yehudi Law. But the playing field for the revelation of Yehudi Law is Yehudi Tatah, is a world. Is Elokim, Bradesh is Bara Elokim. But you're trying to reveal that really it's Havaya Hu Elokim. V'yadaita yom v'ashevesa el levavecha ki Havaya Hu Elokim. Elokim is the place where Havaya is revealed. But were Havaya to be revealed without Elokim, then what? There'd be no world. The world would be bottled. There wouldn't be a world. Right? Reveal sunlight in all its power. Would you see anything? No. Right? Wouldn't see a thing. Why? Because the light would just obliterate any differentiated reality. Okay, so you have to turn that light down. The way God turns it down for us is by having it travel through space for 93 million miles. And then that sunlight reveals things. If we were 1 million miles closer to the sun, that sunlight would not reveal anything. We'd just burn it up to a crisp. But okay, even if it didn't burn us up, we couldn't see in that. Like when you turn on the light, this time of year, you wake up, it's probably dark. Right? It might be dark. I don't know, probably. It might be dark. When you walk into the bathroom and turn on the light, at first, what do you see? Nothing. What has to happen? Some tzimtzum. Where does the tzimtzum happen? It's called your pupil. It's mitzam sem lior, so you can start to see differentiated reality. That's what a pupil's all about. Just teaches us the sort of tzimtzum. Right? It's very cool. God did it that way so we can understand these things. Right? Okay. But when you turn on that light on a dark morning, it hurts, right? It's like, you have to close your eyes. It's too bright. You're probably smart enough to close your eyes before you turn on the light because you've done this before, right? And then slowly but surely you open your eyes. First you're squinting. When you're squinting, what are you doing? Well, you're just, tzimtzum. Then slowly but surely, as your pupils adjust, you can open your eye more and more and more until it's fine. No problem. You can find your toothbrush. You can find your dental floss. You're a good boy. Vatam al zeh. I'm sorry. Vatam al zeh. And the reason shebiyom chafvav bekislev lo yichidshu davar. Okay, so what does it seem the Rebbe's already explained to us? Because now what's he explaining? He's explaining why we don't celebrate Chavav. We didn't say we should start the holiday on Chavav. We said, why don't we have a special event on Chavav to celebrate the third level of miracle? Okay, so that's what the Rebbe's going to answer now, because that was his question. Even though it's true at the top of the page, we could have asked, so why not just start Chavav B'chlal? Oh, so what did we just learn evidently? Why are we celebrating Chav Hey and not Chav Dalet? Because the whole purpose of Chav Dalet is to get to Chav Hey. Now, if you think about it in Gashmis, if we had won the war and nothing else happened, you still have Bris Mikdash. True? So, today, it's very interesting. There's a lot of people who celebrate certain days. that are, good things happened. Other good things did happen. Yom Ha'atzmaut is like a really interesting thing because what happened on Yom Ha'atzmaut? A war started. So that's like an interesting day. But okay, I get it. They declared independence. Well, okay. So some people who celebrate that. A lot of people don't celebrate that. Why not? Well, what happened? Where are we? Still in Golos. I'm going to have a holiday? Bad thing? Who said it's a bad thing? Right? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. That's an interesting question because, if we can just extract ourselves from all the emotions of it all, which is very, very hard, especially for people who didn't grow up in the frum world, because in the non-religious world, so the sacred cow is Zionism. It's the one thing you're not allowed to say anything bad about, and if you do, you're a bad person, right? It's the sacred cow. Okay, but if you step back and look at it from a different perspective, and this is not all Zionists, but the Zionist movement in general was a movement of Jews to uproot Judaism as the center of Jewish life and replace it with something called Zionism. That was their attempt. That's what they were trying to do. Take students out of the yeshivas and put them in the fields. Right? Okay. They fought Yiddishkeit tooth and nail, the Zionists in Europe, and then the first Zionists who came here. Now, once there was actually an establishment of a state, et cetera, so there were all sorts of, one of the, Ben Gurion, to his great credit, realized, hold on, we have to accommodate everybody here. And one of the first things he did, to his great credit, was what was called the, my memory's not good. I don't remember the official term. But basically, they were talking about Shabbos issues in this country. 1948. Right? Talking about Shabbos. So what was status quo? What was his thing? Status quo. What does that mean? Any city where there were no buses on Shabbos, there will still be no buses on Shabbos. In any city where there were buses on Shabbos, there will still be buses on Shabbos. Therefore, to this day, you can't get a bus in Yerushalayim or Tel Aviv on Shabbos. Where can you get a bus? Haifa. Haifa had buses in 1947 on Shabbos. So in 1948, they kept the buses on Shabbos. Right? That was his deal. He sat down with the frum and said, look, okay, we've got this state now, so we've got to, like we're in charge and we have to start doing things, but we have to live together. So if we keep that the same way it was, so then that's okay, right? That the establishment of the state hasn't brought about some sort of disastrous thing in your mind. Because, you can't say that buses on Shabbos are a function of the fact that there's now a state. There were buses on Shabbos last week also, right? So they came to that agreement, right? He understood that he had to come to agreements with people. Okay, Baruch Hashem. But the Zionist movement as a whole, what was it? It was an anti-religious movement. There were religious pockets in it. They were very weak at the beginning. It's become much stronger over the last 75 years. Why? Birth. Who has babies and who doesn't? Right? The religious people in this country are growing and the non-religious people are shrinking. There's still more non-religious people than religious people. Right? The nature of the place also changed when they brought Sephardim from the Sephardic countries, because Sephardim were not as godless as Ashkenazi. And so that changed the nature of the place. Right? Okay. Now that happened right at the beginning, but they were kept down for a very long time and not looked up as very serious people because they weren't intellectuals. And so then at a certain point, Baruch Hashem, they said, well, hold on a second. Our tradition's a real tradition and it matters, and they opened their own political party, and that political party has real power now. Right? Okay. But so Zionism was so do you celebrate that day? Some people say, no, it was a bad day. Fine. Forget about the people who say it's a bad day. Maybe I don't celebrate because we're still in Golos, right? If there's a war and nothing else happened, I'm still going to celebrate the war. Right? 6-day war. There's a day called Yom Yerushalayim. It's a great day. It's really nice. We conquered the Kotel. Oh, great. That's good. Everybody's in favor of that. Everybody thinks that was a big miracle. Everybody. But does everybody celebrate Yom Yerushalayim? No. Why not? Nothing happened. The Kotel? That's what we want? We want the Kotel? What did we have? What did we have that we gave back? We gave it away. We had our bias. And if we had any pride whatsoever, what would we have said? You're not getting the keys back. Give us the keys. This is ours. This isn't yours. First thing they did. Gave him back the keys to Har Bayis. Now, we're not allowed up there. But neither are they. Right? So what did we do? So are you going to celebrate that? Oh, that's okay. Yeah, did something good happen? Definitely something good happened. Who could possibly say something good didn't happen? No one will say something good didn't happen. There's got to be someone, because there's someone who'll say anything, right? But it was a wonderful thing. But interestingly enough, it was such an amazing line. The general that conquered the Temple Mount was a guy named Motagur. He was the general. And there's a famous recording of him, because he's on the kesher. You know, in those days they like had a guy walking around with a backpack, and there was a phone that came out, and he was talking on the phone. Har Bayis biyadenu, Har Bayis biyadenu. He's screaming out. He's a non-religious Jew, right? He's screaming out with unbelievable emotion. Har Bayis biyadenu. We have Har Bayis. Right? Motagur passed away. The prime minister at the time was a fellow named Yitzhak Rabin. They were very close friends, right? They were generals together in the army. They grew up together. They were very close. Yitzhak Rabin spoke at the funeral. And what did he say? This is so interesting. This was while Oslo was happening. He said, and the immortal words of Motagur, Hakotel b'yadenu, Hakotel b'yadenu. What? What? So that's the first day of... the Chashmonim were from guys, right? There's like, they were Mayanot, these people. These were serious people. Okay, Beseder. But without anything else, what's Yehuda Tato? Right? If there's no Yehudi loss, then the miracle in the war. Okay, we won a war. That's good. I mean, it's better winning the war than losing the war. But what happened as a result? Nothing. So then, I mean, what happened as a result was what happens when you win a war. There's people who wanted to hurt you, and now they're not around to hurt you. That's great. That's amazing. That's incredible. It's still not a holiday. It's not a reason for a holiday. When is it that it became clear that this was bigger than that? The next day, when we found the Pach Shem. That's what the Rebbe said first. But what about Chavav? Let's just finish up this paragraph. We'll finish the Maimer on Sunday. We'll wrap it all up. Get the bracha on Sunday. Now, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so we're going to have to do something short, because Thursday is the beginning of the summer program. There's going to be, there seem to be, I was just told that in our Gemara show, there's probably going to be 10 people from the winter program, right? The winter program, not summer program, sorry. The Australians are coming for the summer program. I'm sorry. It's wishful thinking that summer would come upon us. Right? I bought a new coat, so I'm happy to wear it. But yeah, it's good. I wear my new coat today. In the winter program, there are going to be 10 people in our, Rabbi Chazan said there'll probably be about 10 people in our Gemara class. Okay, so that means there's probably going to be about that many people in this. You know, usually those things sort of go together. Okay, so obviously we're not going to start they're not going to be in the middle of a mimer. We'll start a mimer on Thursday morning with the people who come from the winter program. Okay, so what will we do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? So we'll do something short together, and then, right? Okay. Okay, let's finish up the paragraph. I'm sorry. The reason shebeyem chavav bekislei lechichu davar. Who can mavur b'maimer? The Friedegray. Lefi. We also have a lot of footnotes to do on Sunday, so we'll have a lot of work to do. Lefi sheikar hagilui de'avayda le'ela. When will this ultimately be revealed? Yeah, Lasid love it. This is basically what David said. This is a level completely beyond the level that you and I generally experience. Havaya de latata? Well, I don't understand. You say Shema Yisrael every single day, twice a day. That's a level that you're supposed to make part of your life. How do you do it? Well, our Veata we know is Bittul Yesh. Right? When Bittul Yesh, Bittul Mancias, we talked about it, right? Ayurveda is bittul yesh. I experience my own existence. I'm trying to channel that existence to serve God. But I don't reach a state where I'm no longer aware of my independent existence. Okay, that's where you and I are holding. That's not tzaddikim, that's you and I. Okay, fine. How do we get there? By contemplating transcendent levels beyond that. Because if I don't contemplate the transcendent levels beyond that, I'll be so stuck in immanent godliness that I'll give the world too much credit. I'll relate to the existence of the world a little too much. Right, and that question that you don't hear it around here as much, but you do hear it in Lubavitch Sems. But the Rebbe wants us to be part of the world. Yeah, which world? The world that the Goyim made, or the world that God made? Ooh, don't say that, Rabbi. You're taking away a lot of stuff that I like. Well, I don't know. We're all trying to take away from ourselves all sorts of stuff that we like, right? We're replacing it all with other stuff that we like. That's a lot healthier. Okay, but there are things that we like that we probably have come to the conclusion that probably shouldn't really be part of my life. Have I successfully taken it out of my life? No, not necessarily yet, but I understand that it's something that ultimately doesn't have to be there. Okay, but that's all a Yehuda Tata. How do I win that battle? And it's really interesting because it's really our Maimon, Yehudi law. I have to contemplate that level of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, even though I'm living in that level of Baruch Shem Kavod. And that's also another answer to your question. That's why we learn Chassidus about levels of godliness that we're not shaykh to, but we learn about it and think about it and relate to it. Bittul b'metzias, we talk about it. Why? So we'll have a fighting chance in the battle of Bittul Yesh. If I realize Hashem Hakol ve'ein zu l'asoi, Hashem is everything and there's nothing other than Him, I'm not living there. But I can get to a much more reasonable place in my Avodah if I'm aware of the fact that that's ultimately what's true. Right? Oh, okay. So I have to focus on Yehuda Ilah a lot in order to be successful in my Avodah of Yehuda Tata. The completely transcendent level, I can relate to that also. Meaning I talk about it, understand that there's such a place. But when will that become part of our everyday existence? Only b'Yemei Mashiach. Then we'll probably, in other words, the Rebbe seems to say, we'll celebrate Chavav b'Yemei Mashiach. However, not until then. And why? This is also a very, very important point. Jewish holidays, we're not celebrating history. We're reliving history. Jewish holidays are all about that line in Purim, Nizkarim v'Nasim. They're remembered and done. Every year on the 15th of Nisan, Yetzias Mitzrayim happens again. That energy is in the world again. We're not remembering something that happened 3,300, and this year it'll be, where are we going to be holding? We're holding 86, 48 to 80 is 38. 3,338 years ago, we got out of Mitzrayim, almost. This year, Pesach, will be the 3,338th anniversary of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's the 3,338th time that's going to happen in the world again. It's going to be on a more spiritual level than on the physical level. I get it, but that's the energy that's happening in the world. And that's why we try to chop that energy through the mitzvahs that we do and connect ourselves to that level of reality, and that helps us in our Avodah. Okay, so to Hanukkah. Oh, so what can't we relive? The third miracle we can't relive. That was a moment that happened, but it's not shaykh to our everyday reality. The first two parts of it are shaykh to our everyday reality. Yehudi Tata and Yehudi Law. Look what the Rebbe says. It's just an amazing answer. What's that? Kinor shel Yemei Mashiach shel Ches Nimin. The harp of Yemei Mashiach is going to have 8 strands. The harp of David HaMelech has, guess, how many strands? 7. Like the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash has 7 branches, right? Oh, okay. The menorah didn't all of a sudden have 8 branches after Hanukkah. It still had 7 branches because that's the level that we relate to and is revealed to us. The level of 8 isn't revealed. Well, it was revealed. It was revealed for 8 days. And that really did happen, 2,400 and whatever, 2,300, 22, whatever it was, 100 years ago. That happened for 8 days. And then what? That's that. Mashein came but Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash itself, even then. Hey, Rakagilu Davai Tata, right? That's what we said. The Beis Hamikdash, the menorah still had 7 branches after Hanukkah. It didn't all of a sudden become an 8-branch menorah. There's a 7-branch menorah. If Chaf Vav has come into a state of absolute revelation in Elam Hazeh and changed the nature of Elam Hazeh, how many branches should there be on the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash after the holiday of Hanukkah? 8. No, still 7. Wow. Shaloch and Kina shel Beis Hamikdash. Therefore, the harp in the Beis Hamikdash after Hanukkah also. Hayashel Zayin Nimin. It had 7 strings. How you play a harp with 7 strings, I don't know, but I don't know how to play a harp of, however many there are in the harps that, are in the symphony orchestra, so whatever. But Gilur Devaya de Leilo, and the revelation of the highest state, Shaya B'Nes Daspakas Hashemen, that happened with the miracle of the candles lighting 8 days. Hayarak Lefi Shah, it was only temporary. Vashana Shabaya Anes, in the year that was the miracle. But that level is not relived every year, because that's a level that will only come into revelation, B'Yemei Mashiach. The other 2 levels are relived, and so we celebrate them. But why do we celebrate Chaf Hey and not Chaf Dalet? Because the emphasis is on Yehudi Ilah, not Yehudi Tatah. Yes, Yehudi Tatah is there, but we emphasize Yehudi Tatah, and that's the answer to David's question. That's why we say Shema Yisrael first. Right? If we said Baruch Shem first, we'd say, look, our basic avodah is Baruch Shem. There's a higher level, though, that we want to get to, that's Shema Yisrael. We're saying, no, our basic avodah should be Shema Yisrael. We whisper, but you know what? We're still holding by Baruch. No, that's really why we say it, right? The Zohar talks about the daughter of the prince licking the bowl in the kitchen, right? Remember, you used to sneak in and lick the bowl when your mother made the cake, and she'd, if you didn't get to the bowl before she put it in the sink, you'd go into the cake that was in the pan already and take out a piece, and she'd see a finger mark in the dough in the. Who took the batter from the chocolate cake? My mother's chocolate chip cakes. They were better when they were raw than they were when they were cooked. They were good when they were cooked, but wow, that batter was the greatest. Okay. So that's the mushal that the Zohar uses to explain Baruch Shem. Why do we do it? It's like we're licking the side of the bowl.
How is that the bracha of the Malachim then? The Malachim live on a higher level.
What do you mean, Baruch Shem?
Isn't that...
They're on a lower level than us. They can't reach the level of Yehudi. They're Mamashayach. They're a Nivra that's stuck being a Nivra. They can't progress like you and I can. Right? You might ask relative to Yaakov and his children. It's interesting that the children said, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Yaakov said, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Eliyah. Okay. That's an interesting medrash. I don't know how you would explain that. I mean, I'm sure it's explained al pi chassidus. I just never seen it anywhere. Right? But when you and I say it, we say out loud that level that we're aspiring to, and is ultimately the truth that should be revealed in the world. And then we say, okay, right now I'm not holding there. Let's finish up here so we can. There's Tachnun today. I hate to say that. It's not just a few days. Stops again Sunday night. So don't worry.
Until the 25th.
Right, not the 24th, not Sunday, Monday, but I mean Sunday night. Right? You better say Tachnun on Chav Dalet. So we learned the mimer. Vagilu Devaya Leila, second last line. Shaya B'Nes Taspak Hashem Hayarak Lefi Sha'ah. It was only temporary, but Shana Shabaya Nes. V'lochein, therefore, Leikavush B'Chav Vav Kislev Yichad Shuei Zodavim. Therefore, there's nothing new in Chav Vav. Why? Because that level isn't revealed to us yet. We can't celebrate that. That was a temporary thing that was amazing and was definitely the most astounding part of the whole miracle of Hanukkah. But that level, we will only appreciate B'Yemei Mashiach, which might very well mean that on B'Yemei Mashiach, the Chav Vav will become a big deal. Who knows? Right? Sounds like that could happen. But at this point, no. Because interesting enough, after, and what the Rebbe said about the harp, after the miracle of Hanukkah, the harp in the Beis Hamikdash was still 7 nidin. Nothing changed. Okay. But what can we celebrate? The 25th. Could we celebrate Chav Dalet? We could celebrate Chav Dalet. But celebrating Chav Dalet would be putting the emphasis, it would be like saying Baruch Shem before you say Shema Yisrael. We still say it quietly. Okay. Amazing explanation of the whole thing. So on Sunday we'll go through again the 3 different levels that we discussed about. We'll see some footnotes that we didn't look at today, and we'll finish the mimer and have an amazing Shabbos. It's an in Shabbos or out Shabbos? After all that, I guess no one has the energy to go out.
So, yes, Tachlan on Sunday. No Tachlan on Monday.
Yes, Tachlin today. Oh, next week. Next, yes, right. With you. Tachlin on Sunday, unless we can find some chassan to come visit us or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's always nice. And no Tachlin on Monday morning. Hallel. No Tachlin. But no Musa. Hallel without Musa.
Thank you very much.
Hanukkah is a funny holiday.
Never thought of that. Funny.
David, that's yours. Eitan, it's nice to have you back.
It's nice to be back.
This is an amazing mimer. It's just so,
In together at the end.
yeah, it's just astounding how the way it puts this all together. It's just astounding. And you're learning, each piece is really fascinating in its own way. But you have no idea, like, where am I going with all this? In the end, it ends up being 3 different ways of understanding it. There's the 1, 2, 3 of it all, 3 different levels. They're all the same, and then at the end, just in one line, the Rebbe throws out. But really, on a certain level, you could say that Chaf Dalet is higher than that the war is the highest of them all.
It's interesting to think about this, like the same concept with respect to Pesach and the Purim. Like, it's for sure the miracle of leaving Mitzrayim is also clothed in physicality.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I once heard a mashpia talk about he was learning this mimer. He said when we got to the point that he said Dayenu. Hold on. What do you mean Dayenu? In this we're saying on a certain level not Dayenu. If we only won the war.
In Pesach,
we say if we only got out, so that's Dayenu. It's enough.
we never got to a higher level until Sinai.
Well, there's this incredible revelation on the 15th. Right? Okay, it's true. The ultimate purpose of all that is to get the Torah. The ultimate purpose of all that is to bring it into Eretz Yisrael and build the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. But what if we hadn't done that? Would something still have happened? Yes. Getting out of Mitzrayim itself is enough of a revelation of Elokus in Olam Hazeh. Because we're saying relative to our Maimer, I wouldn't really appreciate the war. I don't appreciate the war until I see what happened as a result of it. I don't appreciate the war that it's that level of godliness being revealed until the oil burns for 8 days.
But I could appreciate leaving Mitzrayim even without Malchim Torah.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
And
100%.
Purim, like, it's all physicality. We never see anything
All
else.
clothed in nature.
Yeah.
It's mamish clothed in nature. It's all palace intrigue. It's mamish politics. Mamash. There's no miracles.
Like,
Open miracles.
the biggest miracle is that we just didn't get it. It's that nothing happened. It's not that something happened. It's that
Well,
nothing
we
happened.
got to kill our enemies, but you're right, 100%. Purim is, and on that level, Purim is the highest of them all. You start with Pesach and end with Purim. Right? At the end of the year, you're holding by Purim. You should be holding by Purim after everything you've gone through the whole year. Tzias Mitzrayim and Matan Torah, and then the summer. And that means you're probably going to need to do some tshuva, which is, simple pshat in Elul and Tishrei, and taking Tishrei into the year, and there's Hanukkah. All of it culminates with Purim. I can sit and eat and drink, and it's all eloquence.
Well, that's actually
Right?
wow.
If I don't see the Eibishter, if when I'm sitting and eating and drinking on Purim, and I'm not experiencing a revelation of the Eibishter, my Veata this year didn't work.
The question then is like, what causes the quote unquote reset that Pesach happens again after?
Because I have to go to another level, just like I need another Tishrei, and another Tishrei, and another Tishrei, right? The tshuva ala tshuva. There's the idea of doing tshuva ala tshuva. Right? Why am I saying al chet again? I said al chet last year. So there's the simple pshat, which basically, it's not a simple idea. It's a very sophisticated idea. But that because I'm now on a new level of appreciation So I also appreciate the negativity of the Aveira in a new way now, right? At one point I thought, they say about Balei Tshuva. I have a friend who still says this, and it drives everybody in our shul crazy. He's been a so-called Baal Tshuva for 50 some odd years, and he still says the day I did Tshuva. Yeah, I didn't do tshuva yet. I'm working on it. Yes, there is a. It wasn't a day necessarily. By him, there was a day when he all of a sudden just decided, and he's that kind of personality who would just switch. So my father, all of a sudden, found out, even though it was a false case, he used to smoke a lot. No one knew smoking was bad for you in those days, and he was in the army. He smoked like 40 cigarettes a day or something. So he did some bogus. It turned out to be a bogus test. But he put his hand in some machine which was measuring certain things happening in his blood and before a cigarette and after a cigarette. The difference was very drastic. So he quit smoking that day. He was that kind of guy. Okay, smoking's bad. He stopped. So this guy, Torah's good. I'm in. That literally, he said that's what happened to him. He even knows the day. It was Chaf Cheshvan. He knows the day, what year it was.
And even you know the day
because he's Farbrengt about it. Yeah, I remember the 50th anniversary of it. We were sitting in Farbrengt, and he told everybody his story. It's a fascinating story of what he went through. But everybody gets annoyed with it. No, what do you mean the day you did tshuva? None of us have done it yet. We're working on it. Okay, but. So I'll say, by virtue of the fact that I'm a higher level of understanding now than last year, so my tshuva is going to be more sophisticated this year than last year. Okay, so I have to do tshuva ala tshuva. Right? Rav Nachman of Breslev has a typical Breslev for it. They're into simcha because he likes depressing them. Right? He said, no, the depression and simcha go together in Breslev. Like bittul and yesh go together in Lubavitch, right? We're into bittul, that's why we're all balei gaiva. He said, I have to do tshuva on my tshuva. Because last year I said, Al chait shechatanu, when I was telling God how sorry I was lying. It wasn't true. So I have to do tshuva for lying to God when I said, I really care about this. That's such a Breslev word. But okay, there's real emes in that. To do tshuva for lying to God. Okay, say there. But there's a progression. So I make it to Purim, to start all over again, basically.
I think it's interesting. Like you're saying that also that we're doing a higher level of.
It's a new Mitzrayim. It's a new Mitzrayim.
But it's almost that we're awaiting for it to become physical again, because at some point
we want to bring it down to there.
Yeah.
But it's going to start with spirituality, right? 100%. But what Mitzrayim am I getting out of this year? What state of limitation am I extracting myself? I hope it's
when you have the final redemption, which is close to physicality, it's even higher because it's in physicality.
Yeah, then it's the ultimate is going to all be happening down here, 100%.
Wow.
You don't want to be in Gan Eden. You want to be down here, right? No one wants to die and go to Gan Eden. We're going to be here for Mashiach. Right? And those people in Gan Eden, when Mashiach comes, what are they going to be waiting for? Come back here. There's going to be a big line. It'll take 40 years, evidently, to get all the neshamas down here. Okay. The Amish could do it in a second. Evidently, it's a 40-year process. Right? So they're all going to be waiting up there. I always have this vision of, waiting in the bank with that number. Oh my gosh.
Can you explain your...
Number 599,206.
Can you explain what it taking 40 years? What's the significance of... Other than we know that that's true.
I don't know. Maybe I've never seen an explanation of that, so let me turn this up. Never seen an explanation of that, so I don't know.
Maybe the Bangladeshis are enthralled by.
Well, there's two people still listening. Hi. Probably